The signal did not arrive as a transmission. It arrived as a wound in the substrate of reality. It was a jagged tear in the quantum foam, screaming across the void and registering not on receivers, but directly on the gravitational sensors of the deep-range surveyor ship, the Icarus Venture. In the command center, Commander Elara Vance watched the cascade failure. The holographic arrays pulsed an angry, impossible amethyst. "Status report," she commanded, her voice calm but threaded with steel. She was a woman built for this void, dark skin, cropped hair, eyes focused. "It's not radiation, Commander," replied Chief Engineer Rostova, his fingers dancing over standard glass interfaces that were now weeping static. "It's spatial displacement. We are being pulled toward a gravity well that wasn't there 10 seconds ago." A void black fracture was opening in the center of the telemetry display, swallowing the light of a distant, dying star. The Venture groaned, its artificial gravity plates straining against an external force of terrifying magnitude. The signal, they realized too late, wasn't a message. It was a gravity pulse, a cosmic beckoning towards a pitch-black abyss that had suddenly appeared where a vibrant nebula should have been. It felt like an invitation to dive into the throat of a god. "Main drive is unresponsive. Primary gravity shear is hitting 900 standard GS." Rostova shouted, his face illuminated by a fresh cascade of crimson warning lights. The Venture wasn't just falling. It was being folded into the void. Elara gripped the command console, her knuckles white. She didn't need sensors to know the ship was structure critical. The very geometry of the bridge was beginning to torque. "Initiate emergency power route to navigation. Rostova, if we can't bleed off the kinetic energy, we need to spin up the FTL core. Not to jump, but to create a countergravitational bubble." It was a desperate gamble. Activating the faster-than-light drive inside a massive gravity well should, theoretically, tear the ship apart. But failing to act would guarantee their crushing obliteration. The engineer's hesitation lasted only a microsecond. He slammed his palm onto a sealed override panel. A profound, bass vibration hummed through the deck plates, drowning out the structural groans. The Venture's central spine glowed with brilliant cyan light as the FTL stabilizers engaged. The black void through the viewport, a swirling, indigo lens of bent light and crushed matter, seemed to pause in its consumption. For a moment, they held the edge. "The FTL bubble is holding, Commander, but only barely," Rostova reported, his voice tight with strain as he braced himself against the vibrating console. "Primary core temperature is spiking into the critical zone. If it fails, the gravitational singularity will crush us instantly." Commander Elara Vance stared out at the swirling indigo vortex. It was an impossible structure, a scar in space-time that defied their astronomical charts. "We can't stay in this pocket indefinitely, Chief. We need to ride the wave out." She scanned the telemetry data, looking for an exit trajectory. There, a slight variance in the accretion disk. It's an oscillation in the gravity well, likely a harmonic resonance. She pointed to a shimmering amber conduit on the holographic display, contrasting sharply with the deep purple and charcoal tones of the rift. "It's narrow, very narrow," Rostova noted. "It's our only shot," Vance insisted, her coppery hair disheveled, but her eyes sharp. Rostova shunt all available power, including life support, into the thrusters. "We need every micronewton of thrust. We're going to skim the edge of that oscillation and use its rotational inertia to slingshot ourselves clear." The ship lurched as power was rerouted. Lights dimmed across the bridge, leaving only the urgent glow of the consoles and the terrifying beauty of the void outside. The Icarus Venture ceased its vibration. It became still, a precise silence settling over the bridge, save for the low, powerful thrum of the diverted energy. Then, a titanic surge of acceleration slammed Elara and Rostova back into their seats. The ship was no longer a victim, it was a projectile. Through the viewport, the universe was reduced to lines of impossible light. The black void they were skimming became a churning ocean of sapphire and charcoal, slipping past at velocities that bled reality at the edges. They were surfing the very threshold of the Singularity's event horizon. Just as the G-forces threatened blackouts, the ship hit the amber oscillation resonance. The Venture didn't just move forward. It slid sideways through a folding plane of reality, propelled by the gravity assist of a dead star. The indigo vortex was suddenly ripped away, replaced by the brilliant, overwhelming flash of re-entering normal space. The sudden deceleration was a physical blow. When the sensors finally normalized, the bridge was bathed in an eerie, peaceful cyan light, emanating from an unknown system. The Venture hung in the silence, like a ghost. The frantic screaming of the alarms had been replaced by a rhythmic, low-frequency hum that seemed to vibrate in the very marrow of Elara's bones. "Rostova report," Elara whispered, her voice cracking. She wiped a smear of blood from her brow, her coppery hair now wild and matted with sweat. The engineer didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the main viewport. "Commander, I don't think the sensors are malfunctioning. We aren't in the nebula anymore. We aren't even in the same sector." Before them lay a world that defied every law of planetary formation. It was a massive, luminous sphere, but it wasn't a planet of rock or gas. It was a crystalline lattice of translucent teal and gold, several times the size of Jupiter. Pulsing veins of pure white energy webbed across its surface, like a global nervous system. Around it, instead of moons, floated thousands of derelict ships from a dozen different civilizations, some recognizable, others ancient and alien beyond comprehension. "It's a graveyard," Rostova breathed, his hands trembling over his console. "Or a collection." The Icarus Venture was being pulled again, but this time, the tug was gentle, like a beckoning hand. A massive aperture was opening in the crystalline shell of the megastructure, revealing a shimmering, atmospheric interior. The Icarus Venture drifted through the iris of the crystalline sphere, crossing a threshold into a realm where the laws of physics seemed to soften. Inside, there was no vacuum. A breathable, luminescent atmosphere, a haze of gold and emerald, filled the interior of the Dyson scale structure. "Commander, the hull pressure is normalizing against an external atmosphere," Rostova reported, his voice hushed in awe. "It's oxygen-nitrogen rich, but with high concentrations of ionized noble gases. We're flying through a cathedral of light." Elara stood, her legs shaky as the ship's internal gravity fought to reconcile with the sphere's own gentle pull. Beyond the viewport, the ground, was a concave landscape of floating islands, colossal shards of obsidian and jade that drifted in a slow, choreographed dance. Between these islands, rivers of liquid mercury flowed uphill, defying gravity, and glowing flora pulsed with the same white energy they had seen from the outside. But it was the center that commanded their attention. A core of pure, condensed starlight sat at the heart of the sphere, harnessed by massive golden rings that rotated with mechanical precision. This wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was a sanctuary, a life support system for a world that had outlived its sun. The Venture continued its slow, inexorable drift towards the core, passing by some of the derelict ships that floated within the sphere. They were ancient vessels, their hulls encrusted with the same glowing flora that bloomed on the Obsidian Islands, now inert relics in this impossible space. Elara recognized fragments of designs from long-lost human exploratory probes, alongside utterly alien architectures that seemed to twist light itself. "Life signs, Commander," Rostova exclaimed, his voice hushed. "Faint, but definitely there. Not on the derelicts, but below us, on one of the floating islands." Elara peered through the viewport, her brow furrowed. Beneath them, one of the larger jade-colored islands was adorned with structures that were not entirely natural. They were organic, yet clearly constructed, like colossal insect nests woven from luminescent fibers. A small, shimmering craft, similar to a seed pod, detached from one of these structures and began to ascend towards the Venture. "They've detected us," Elara murmured, a mixture of apprehension and wonder in her voice. "Prepare for first contact, Rostova. Let's hope they're as welcoming as their home." The seed pod craft was elegant, its surface shifting with iridescent hues, clearly powered by the same internal light that permeated the sphere. It approached the Venture with an unhurried grace, scanning them with gentle pulses of emerald energy that felt more like curiosity than threat. "They're hailing us, Commander," Rostova reported, his hands steady on the comm panel. Universal Translation Matrix is engaged. It's a complex series of resonant frequencies, a language of light and tone. Elara nodded, her gaze fixed on the approaching vessel. Her previous encounters with alien life had been fraught with tension, but this felt different. The entire environment, from the gentle pull of gravity to the shimmering atmosphere, exuded a sense of ancient peace. A soft, melodic voice resonated directly into the Venture's bridge, bypassing the speakers and settling into their minds. It was not a spoken language, but a cascade of emotions and images. "Welcome. You have found the Cradle of Whispers. We have awaited those who dare to cross the veil." The seed pod craft docked gently with the Venture's airlock. Elara took a deep breath. "Rostova, maintain comms. Prepare to open the bay. I'm going in." Elara stepped into the airlock, the metallic tang of the Venture's interior giving way to the sweet, earthy scent of the sphere's atmosphere. The inner door cycled open, revealing not a sterile docking bay, but a chamber carved from living jade, pulsating with soft, internal light. Waiting for her was a being of pure light. It was tall and slender, its form vaguely humanoid, yet composed entirely of interwoven streams of golden and emerald light. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, were swirling nebulae of compressed starlight, conveying an ancient wisdom that transcended spoken word. This was one of the inhabitants of the Cradle of Whispers. "Welcome, Voyager from the Shattered Stars." The melodic voice resonated in Elara's mind, accompanied by a mental image of the Icarus Venture tumbling through the dark void. "Your journey was seen. Your desperation understood." Elara felt no fear, only a profound sense of wonder. "Commander Elara Vance of the Icarus Venture. We followed a signal, a wound in space." The light being shimmered, a gesture that Elara instinctively understood as a nod. The wound was a beacon, a calling to those who still seek beyond the known. "Your universe is not the only one facing a silent end. We built this sanctuary to preserve echoes, remnants of what was and what could be." Elara looked past the light being towards the vast, glowing interior of the sphere. She saw faint, translucent images flickering within the light being's form, fleeting glimpses of civilizations she had never known, technologies beyond her comprehension, and nebulae long since collapsed into dust. It was as if the being contained an entire library of cosmic history. "Echoes?" Elara questioned, her voice barely a whisper. "What do you mean, silent end?" The light being projected an image into her mind, a slow, inexorable dimming of stars across countless galaxies, a fading into cold, silent nothingness. It was a vision of cosmic entropy, an ultimate fate that even the most advanced civilizations could not escape. "All things eventually fall into shadow." The voice resonated with profound sorrow. "But before the complete silence, there are whispers. We gather those whispers, those fragments of light and life, here. This is an ark, Commander Vance, not for physical beings, but for the very essence of existence." Elara thought of humanity, of the struggles and triumphs, the art and science. Could all of that simply fade? The sheer scale of what this civilization had achieved, and why, was staggering. "And the ships outside?" she asked, gesturing vaguely towards the viewport. "The derelicts?" "They are testaments," the being replied, its light rippling. "Failed attempts to escape the inevitable. They sought physical preservation. We seek the preservation of memory." Elara felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. The idea of an entire universe slowly, inexorably winding down was terrifying. Yet, in this vast, shimmering sanctuary, there was also a defiant beauty. "So, what happens here?" Elara asked, her gaze sweeping over the serene, glowing landscape. "What is your purpose now?" The light being turned, and its gaze, or what Elara perceived as its gaze, swept across the floating islands, the rivers of mercury, and the shimmering core of starlight. We are the caretakers of the forgotten, the chroniclers of the lost. We observe, we record, and occasionally, when a soul like yours breaches the veil, we share what we have learned. A delicate, crystalline artifact, no larger than Elara's palm, materialized in the light being's ethereal hand. It pulsed with a soft, internal aurora. This holds a fragment, Commander Vance. A whisper from a universe that chose to live not by defiance, but by acceptance. It is a seed of knowledge, containing blueprints for sustainable realities, for philosophies of harmony, for the very music of a dying star. Elara reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surface of the crystal. It hummed gently, a profound sense of peace radiating from its core. This wasn't a weapon or a power source, but something far more valuable. The crystal pulsed in Elara's hand, a miniature nebula contained within its facets. She felt a connection, not just to the object, but to the countless voices it represented. A profound sense of responsibility settled upon her. Why share this with us? Elara asked, her gaze lifting to the light being. What do you ask in return? Only this, Commander Vance. The entity resonated, its light subtly shifting, conveying a mixture of hope and ancient weariness. Take this knowledge back to your universe. Let it be a seed. We do not seek to avert the inevitable, for the end is woven into the fabric of all beginnings. But we seek to ensure that when your stars finally dim, the echo of your life, your wonder, your understanding, is not lost to the void entirely. Let your end be beautiful, not in fear, but in acceptance and in the continuation of meaning. Elara nodded slowly, clutching the crystal. The gravity of their mission had shifted from mere survival to something far grander. They hadn't just escaped a black hole. They had found a library of lost cosmic wisdom, a testament to the enduring spirit of existence. The path back will be shown, the light being conveyed, and a shimmering, temporary portal began to open near the Venture's airlock, leading not back to the familiar, but to a different pathway through the folded space. Go, and carry the whispers. Elara returned to the Icarus Venture, the crystalline artifact clutched tightly in her hand. Rostova looked at her, his face etched with concern, but also with an unspoken question. We have a path, Elara stated, her voice imbued with a newfound resolve. And a purpose. We're going home, Chief, but we're not empty-handed. As the Venture engaged its thrusters, gliding towards the shimmering portal, Elara took one last look at the Cradle of Whispers. The majestic, glowing sphere, the floating islands, the eternal core of starlight. It was a monument to hope in the face of universal despair. The light being stood by the aperture, its form radiant, a silent guardian of cosmic memory. The jump through the portal was smoother than their terrifying entry into the singularity, a gentle slide through colors that defied the spectrum. They emerged not in the familiar, but in a distant, uncharted corner of their own galaxy, the stars around them vibrant and young. The artifact in Elara's hand pulsed, guiding them. The Icarus Venture, once a mere surveyor, was now an ark. Its crew carried not only the tales of an impossible journey, but a fragment of ancient wisdom, a whisper from the end of everything, meant to guide new beginnings. The universe was still vast, still indifferent, but now, Elara knew, it held secrets more profound than humanity had ever dared to imagine. The signal had been a wound, yes, but also an opening. A doorway to understanding that the true legacy of life wasn't found in eternal defiance, but in the echoes carried into the silence.